Hi, we're living in historic times, which can be tough, but it's also a great time to keep a diary or a journal, something that you can use later in your life to remember the experience or to hand down to future generations to let them know what this is like. My name's Craig Colby. I'm a television producer. I've been working in the industry for 30 years. I've made all kinds of television shows. I've directed them, I've written them, I've produced them. I've been an executive producer, and I'm going to use some of the skills that I've accrued over the years to give you some pointers on what you should have in a journal or a diary. And at the end, I'm going to give you some tips on how to shoot it if you're going to be doing this as a video. So first things first, you may think that, geez, what can I write about? I'm just sitting in my house all day. Well, the most famous diary ever written was the Diary of Anne Frank. And it was written by a young girl who was hiding out in the Holocaust, and everything took place in her apartment. And it is a brilliant piece of work and insight into human nature. So that's a high yardstick, but it can give you an idea of what can be done if you want to do this. So let's go right into some of the things you need to do, some of the tips. There's two things that you're documenting here. The first is what's going on in the world around you, and the second is what's going on with you. What makes this unique is the experience the world is going through, unheralded. We've never had a situation like this where it's been all of us together against one thing. But what makes the story really unique is you and your experiences in it. So let's just go through how to get started, and then we'll get to some of that context. The first thing is, if you're starting your diary or your journal now, we are well into this experience, but you don't have to go back and start at the beginning. You don't have to figure out, well, when did I first hear about it, things like this. That's not where you have to start. The details may be foggy. You also don't have to start right now. You don't have to start today with what's going on today. A great tip for starting is start in a place of conflict or revelation, when you first realized that this was going to be very different. For me, I started when I was reading an article about how quickly this could spread, and my breathing was labored, and I thought, do I have this COVID-19? And I realized, no, I was just reacting to the information I was reading. So that's a good place to start. You can start with, in the business we call it a hook. It's something really interesting that grabs attention, and then you can backfill to the context. You can either start with the hook and then go to today. You can start with the hook and then put in more information about what's happened already, but always start with something that is going to grab the reader's attention. And what grabs reader's attention is a moment of conflict or realization. Next, you can provide some context. What's going on in the world outside? And there's a couple of different ways you can do this. You can do this by writing down what you see in the news. You can cut and paste little sections of news articles in it. You can put in videos. I'm not sure which different documents you can use to put video and pictures. Maybe you know, I don't. But you can use any pictures, any graphics, any little piece of news that tells you what's going on in the outside world. And that's something you can update regularly. In the journal that I'm keeping, I put in updated statistics to show how things are changing and how I react to them. A great place to go for that information is the Government of Canada has a great COVID-19 site. It links to the province's site, and your city may have a good site too. Write about routines. Your routines are the things that you do every day, and you don't want to write the same routine every day, but give people an idea, and yourself in the future, of what you do every day to get through this. And you only have to write the routine once. Later, you can write about changes in routine. What's different now? What's different about going to school now? Things along those lines. You can also write about things that used to be normal, but now are quite different. For example, I wrote about going for groceries, and I do the shopping in our house, and going for groceries used to be as simple as going out and getting them and then bringing them home. But now when I go out and get them, yesterday for the first time, I put on a mask. I bring hand sanitizer with me after I touch pretty much anything. I use hand sanitizer. I don't touch my face. When I get home, I take all the groceries, I put them on the porch, I wipe down a place inside, and then I wipe down everything and hand it in, and then wipe down the containers after that. What used to take me about an hour and a half now takes me about 3 hours. So that's different. You can write about conflicts. Conflicts are always the heart of drama. And conflict doesn't have to be arguing with a parent or a brother or sister. Conflict can be things that you are feeling inside. Maybe you're feeling a little scared and you don't know how to talk about it. Maybe you're feeling frustrated because you're inside and you want to be outside with your friends. All of those things are things that you can write about that have conflict inside them. And then write about how you resolve those. The most important thing in all of this is to write about your experience. How do you feel? How are your feelings changing? What do you think about what's going on? What are the conversations you've had? You can write about how other people in your family are reacting to this and what they are doing, but it's always good to bring it back to you. And it's a good idea to think of writing not just information, but writing in scenes. I'll give you an example of a scene that plays out at our house. I'm sitting at our dining room table. There's a window there. My older son, Shane, who's 15, sits there. My younger son, Curtis, who's 11, sits there. There's a fence outside, and it's not unusual for a squirrel to run along the top of that fence. Every night at dinner, Shane would say, "Oh, look, a squirrel," and Curtis would turn around and look for it. There was never a squirrel. Shane just kept doing that to see how long it would go before Curtis realized there wasn't a squirrel. And when Curtis realized there wasn't a squirrel, he laughed. That was a scene that played out every day in a way we kept ourselves entertained. So when it comes to writing, here's an important thing. You don't want to write so much that it becomes a burden or an obligation. You want to write enough so that you'll enjoy it and you'll keep writing. To keep writing is the important thing, to keep documenting as you go through. If you write a little bit every day, that's fine. I would recommend practicing writing at different times of the day to see what works best for you. I know a lot of people who like to write in the morning and they'll write about the previous day. I know other people who would like to write at night and sort of wrap up the day. Find the time that works best for you and do it. You may want to write little bits throughout the day. Whatever you do, just keep writing. You don't want it to be a burden. So if you're videotaping this, maybe you're not so comfortable writing things down, but you are more comfortable videotaping. Instead of holding the camera, we're going to pretend this is my camera. Instead of holding it up like this, hold it like this. That gives you more action in the frame. Your eye will move around for it. It's the way your TV is now set up. It's called a 16:9 framing. So shoot like that. It's called landscape as opposed to portrait. Two things when you're shooting. If you just want to get the pictures to use later, make sure you're not talking. Even turn off the radio. Get nice, quiet, natural sounds so you know what that's like. But you may see something unusual and want to narrate it, like how long the lines are at the grocery store. That is perfectly acceptable too. There's something else you may want to do. In television, we call it a confession cam. You see it on things like Big Brother, where you just set up the camera, you point it at yourself, you record it, and you just tell the camera what you're feeling. And that's a good way to capture that. I would recommend, if you're doing a video, to go over your video every day and get rid of the stuff you don't think you're going to need, because you don't want to have reams of video to have to go through after this. Try to pare it down and it'll save your space. So those are the tips on keeping a journal. I hope that you will. We are in unprecedented times, and just think how great it would be if you could pick up a copy of a diary that one of your ancestors wrote about their experiences in the War of 1812 or in World War II, or even after 9/11. So I hope you'll do this. Please feel free to send me any questions you may have. My email address is Craig, C-R-A-I-G, @colbyvision.net. And that is COLBYVISION.net. Craig at colbyvision.net. Good luck with your writing, and I'm sure you'll come up with something fantastic.